traits that make you strange are the gifts that make you special. And so I know you're different because you wouldn't be here with me now if you didn't feel you're different. You probably don't fit in with most conversations. I sure don't fit in with most conversations. I don't know a lot about most things that most people talk about because I don't participate in the majority. Right? I don't participate in the news. I don't like to gossip. I like to encourage people versus diminish people. I like to be productive versus busy. I like to be creative versus complacent. I like to create value versus take from other people. I like to move into my present and future versus get stuck in the past. I like to be fast versus move too slow. I like to be a leader versus a victim. I like to believe in possibility versus get stuck in rational thinking because you know the instinct is so much more powerful than intellect. And all I'm suggesting to you is simply this. It's the very things that make you different that make you authentic. And if you don't fit in, I just want to share with you, I've never fit in. And the very nature of anyone who's living a visionary life, and you are living a visionary life, no matter what you're doing, let's not get trapped in labels. Oh, I'm just a coder. I'm just a receptionist at a restaurant or in an organization. I'm just a yoga teacher. I'm just a gym manager. I'm just a chef in a restaurant. I'm just a teacher. People always say this when I interact with them on the social media. I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm just a student. No, you're not. I'm just a mom. I'm just a dad. No, you're not just. You're very special. There are no extra people on the planet today. And I just want to say to you and validate for you and encourage you, those things that other people might not get, those are your gifts. You might be awkward. Awesome. You see the world through a different lens. Steve Wozniak, who was on my stage at the Titan Summit Zurich, the co-founder of Apple, one of the best people I've ever met. He would not have been able to create the Apple platforms and products that he created if he didn't see the world through a different set of eyes. Steve Jobs saw the world through a different set of eyes. Travis Kalanick of Uber saw the world through a different set of eyes. Jeff Bezos of Amazon saw possibility. Let me have an online store that initially sells books. John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Rosa Parks, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Beethoven, Michelangelo, who did the Sistine Chapel, and in Florence, David, Jonas Salk, Tesla. We could just go on and on and on and on. These people were misunderstood because the nature of a genius is to not fit in.
The main reasons that people don't get what they want is because they don't actually figure out what it is. And the probability that you're going to get what would be good for you, let's say, which would even be better than what you want, right? Because, you know, you might be wrong about what you want easily. But maybe you could get what would really be good for you. Well, why don't you? Well, because you don't try. You don't think, okay, here's what I would like if I could have it. And I don't mean in a way that you manipulate the world to force it to deliver you goods for status or something like that. That isn't what I mean. I mean something like, imagine that you were taking care of yourself like you were someone you actually cared for. And then you thought, okay, I'm caring for this person. I would like things to go as well for them as possible. What would their life have to be like in order for that to be the case? Well, people don't do that. They don't sit down and think, all right, you know, let's figure it out. You've got a life. It's hard, obviously. It's like 3 years from now, you can have what you need. You got to be careful about it. You can't have everything. You can have what would be good for you, but you have to figure out what it is, and then you have to aim at it. Well, my experience with people has been if they figure out what it is that would be good for them, and then they aim at it, then they get it. And it's strange because they don't it's a strange thing. It's not quite that simple because, you know, you may formulate an idea about what would be good for you, and then you take 10 steps towards that, and you find out that your formulation was a bit off, and so you have to reformulate your goal. You know, so you're kind of going like this as you move towards the goal. But a huge part of the reason that people fail is because they don't ever set up the criteria for success. And so since success is a very narrow line and very unlikely, the probability that you're going to stumble on it randomly is 0. And so there's a proposition here, and the proposition is, if you actually want something, you can have it. Now the question then would be, well, what do you mean by actually want? And the answer is that you reorient your life in every possible way to make the probability that that will occur as certain as possible. And that's a sacrificial idea, right? It's like, you don't get everything. Obviously. But maybe you can have what you need. And maybe all you have to do to get it is ask. But the asking isn't a whim or today's wish. It's like, you have to be deadly serious about it. You have to think, okay, like, I'm taking stock of myself. And if I was going to live properly in the world, and I was going to set myself up such that being would justify itself in my estimation, and I don't mean as a harsh judge, exactly what is it that I would aim at? Sit on your bed one day and ask yourself, what remarkably stupid things am I doing on a regular basis to absolutely screw up my life? And if you actually ask that question, but you have to want to know the answer, right? Because that's actually what asking the question means. It doesn't mean just mouthing the words. It means you have to decide that you want to know. You'll figure that's out so fast it'll make your hair curl.
One of my brain tattoos that I've become very well known for is, no one will believe in you until you believe in you. And so good people often become seduced by the chatter of their loudest fears. And what I mean by that is, we come up with a great idea. Let's say it's to start a project that will allow you to lead your field. Let's say it's an idea for a new product that will allow you to grow a new company. Let's say you come up with an idea for a new painting if you are an artist. Let's say it's an idea that will allow you to take your fitness and your wellness and your longevity to a whole new level of wow. And pretty shortly after you come up with the idea, your ego starts screaming. Because we are good in our comfort zones, but the moment we start to go blue ocean around our next level of mastery, our fears come up because we're going out into the unknown. It's human. You know, if you were to look at the psychobiology of it, and you were to study the pure biology of it, there's a term called homeostasis. Human beings are hardwired for a steady state, and that kept us alive. So literally, our heart beats around the same amount, you know, the 72 beats per minute, and our blood pressure is within a small bandwidth. And that allows us to survive. But what happens is, when we come up with a new idea and when we see a new opportunity and we start to leave our comfort zones into the zone of the unknown where greatness lives, we get scared. And the true heroes and the true titans and the true masters, those people are not fearless. Those are people who have just practiced walking into their fear and living on the razor's edge consistently to the point where they're comfortable amid their discomfort. And that's the great opportunity for you, not to avoid fear, but to be comfortable in the unknown, to be comfortable when you're terrified. And that really is what the great artists, the great entrepreneurs, the great titans, and the great masters are very good on doing. So the first reason good people lose is their faith is not as strong as their fear. Or to put it a bit more elegantly, their fears are larger than their faith. And so to be tactical for you, how do you build more faith? Well, you do what you're frightened to do. And it's a practice. You know, a great athlete practices every morning, and a great producer practices walking into their fears every single day. And what I'm encouraging you to do is every single day do one thing that causes your palms to sweat. Every single day start training your brain to hunt for opportunities to step into that unknown where possibility lives. And if you keep on doing it, you're literally going to build some new neurological hardwiring, a new pathway in your brain where it becomes easier. Because as you know so well, all change is hard at first, and it's messy in the middle, and it's beautiful at the end.
The thing you can do is teach people to write, because there's no difference between that and thinking. And one of the things that just blows me away about universities is that No one ever tells students why they should write something. It's like, well, you have to do this assignment. Well, why are you writing? Well, you need the grade. It's like, no, you need to learn to think. Because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake. And those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way. So that's why you learn to write. It's like, and I can't believe that people aren't just told that. It's like, it's the most powerful weapon you can possibly provide someone with. And I mean, I know lots of people who've been staggeringly successful and watched them throughout my life. I mean, those people, you don't want to have an argument with them. They'll just slash you into pieces. And not in a malevolent way. It's like, if you're going to make your point and they're going to make their point, you better have your points organized, because otherwise you are going to look like and be an absolute idiot. You are not going to get anywhere. And if you can formulate your arguments coherently and make a presentation, if you can speak to people, if you can lay out a proposal, God, people give you money, they give you opportunities, you have influence.
You want to, if you want to have a world-class company, release only magic. Another way I could put it, only release Sistine Chapel ceiling level products to the world. Steve Jobs said it beautifully. He said, I wanted the icons on the iPhone to be so beautiful, people would want to lick the screen. I had a senior leader show up at one of my leadership events, and he said, you know, Robin, Steve Jobs was like that. I actually went to his house and met him shortly before he died, and he didn't look very well, but he didn't want to talk about his physical condition. He just wanted to talk about the product we were launching. He was so monomaniacally focused on the user experience, he literally wanted everything to be flawless. That was Steve Jobs' brilliance and obsession. I saw an incredible interview with Johnny Ive by Charlie Rose. And in that, Johnny Ive, who you know is the design genius behind a lot of the Apple products, he said, you know, I knew Steve Jobs and I were spiritual brothers when we were in a store one day. And Steve Jobs said to me, he goes, hey, come on over, Johnny, you got to see this. And I believe from the interview, I believe this is what they said, but they were looking at an arrow. And Steve Jobs said, look at how the sharp point of the arrow is attached to this part, and look how seamless it is, and look at the engineering, and I wonder how they did that. And Johnny Ive said Steve Jobs was just in the pocket of the engineering and beauty behind that piece of artistry.
About just raising your standards. I mean, I always tell people, if you want to know how to change your life, I give it to you in 3 words, boring as it sounds: raise your standards. And what does that mean? Corny as it sounds. Raise your standards. Oh, thank you for the breakthrough thought, Tony. I'm glad I wasted my time watching this little email with you. But think about it. Lasting change is different than a goal. You don't always get your goals, but you always get your standards. Maybe it would help you is to think about it this way. I try to explain standards to people with a different set of words. Think of it as everybody in life gets their musts. They don't get their shoulds. Like, think about it. Most people have a list of shoulds, don't they? Don't you have a list of the shoulds, things you should do, you should follow through on? I should lose some weight, I should work out more, I should make more calls, I should respond more rapidly to my email, whatever, you know? I should get into the office earlier, I should be, more confident. Whatever your should list is, people love to have their should list be met, but it's kind of like New Year's resolutions. If it does, it's really exciting, but if it doesn't, which is most of the time, it's a little disappointing, but you kind of know it's not going to happen. But when you decide something is a must for you, an absolute must, when you cut off any possible, you say, I'm going to find the way, or I'm going to make the way. Human beings, when they resolve things, when they make a real resolution inside themselves, which is they raise the standard and they make it a must, they find the way. Think about it in your own life. Haven't you had some area of your life where you raise your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it, and kept telling yourself, I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point. And inside yourself you said, no more. And it was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside of you shifted. And what was a should became a must, and you've never gone back. Is there an area like that in your life you can think of? Again, did you ever smoke cigarettes? Did you ever eat a certain way, drink a certain form of alcohol, and then finally say no more, and you just don't go back? And notice this, it doesn't really take any willpower anymore. Because somewhere when we make this click, when we make something a must, we attach ourselves to it. It becomes part of our identity. And one thing I've learned in the last, 33 years of working with people from now over 100 countries, 4 million people, is human beings absolutely follow through on who they believe they are. If you said to me, well, I'm really gonna work hard to stop smoking, but I've been a smoker my whole life and I am a smoker. I know your days are numbered. You're gonna be back smoking cigarettes again because we all act consistent with who we believe we are. I tell people the strongest force in the whole human personality is this need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. If you define yourself as somebody who is really conservative, you're not gonna be crazy and act nuts unless you're really drunk or something, and then you can say it's the alcohol, when it's really just you finally getting permission to be yourself. The alcohol is your excuse. If you're a really crazy person, you act crazy, outrageous, playful. You don't act conservative because that's not who you are. Very often people say, well, I can't do that. I'm not that kind of person. And I always say to people, really, when did you define yourself? I mean, really, how many years ago did you come up with what you could and couldn't do in your life? How many years ago? Most people, if they really look at how they're living their life today, it's based on a set of standards, a set of beliefs that they made choices about 10, 20, 30 or more years ago. I mean, very often we made decisions in our youth or very young about what to believe, about what we were capable of, about who we are as a person, and that becomes the glass ceiling, if you will, that controls us. There's a corny metaphor, but it's true. I remember one time I was with my family at the circus, and there was a person there, and they had this big, giant elephant. And you look at this elephant, and they take this little rope, put it around the elephant's neck, and they drive this stake into the ground. And I mean, you look at this, and you know that elephant could rip down the entire tent with almost no effort. And yet, the elephant doesn't struggle, doesn't try. Why? Because the elephant's conditioned. And they take that elephant and condition the elephant when it's a baby elephant. That's how they train them. When it's a little baby elephant and it doesn't have the power yet, they put a big rope around it and they drive this huge stake in the ground, and the elephant fights and fights and fights. And one day, finally, that elephant decides, I'm not capable of pulling this out. And once that becomes the definition of an identity of anyone, an elephant in this case, they don't even try anymore. It's just who I am, that's how it is, that's just the way it is in my life. I'd like to ask you to take a look at any place you've got a limitation and ask yourself, when did I decide to accept that limitation? And you may not even see it as a limitation. You might see it as just that's who I am. But so often in our lives, we've adapted to be a certain way so that we don't fail or so that people will like us or respect us, but it's not necessarily who we are. Joy comes when you're spontaneous. It's really hard to be truly happy when you're not being yourself. And most of us have no clue who we are. And so a big part of my work, if you've ever been to an event, you know, is to get people to do things spontaneously without thinking, because that's when the real you shows up. That's when the energy comes alive. And when you do that, when you start to connect to your true nature, suddenly there's energy available for you to set a higher standard for what you want in your life. That's what this is really all about. And when I talk about standards, when I talk about, shoulds versus musts, think about your own life. I know there have been areas in your life where some point in time you just shifted and you raised the standard and your life changed. Because whatever people have their identity attached to, they live. We live who we believe we are. That's just how it works. It's just kind of like, I'll give you an example. Look at your physical body. Your physical body today is an absolute reflection of only one thing, not your goals, not your desires, but your standards. The identity you have for yourself. If your standard is you're an athlete, then there's a certain amount of strength, a muscle tone, and energy that's available in your body on a regular basis because that's who you are. And so you do whatever's necessary to maintain that identity. Again, the strongest force in the human personality is this need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. Because if you don't know who you are, you wouldn't know how to act. Once you lock in on that identity, your brain finds a way to keep you there. If you say, man, I'm overweight, I've always been overweight, I'm big boned, and that's the story you got, then you're gonna always find a way to get back there. That's your settling point. That's your identity. That's where things lock in. If you see somebody who's in really great shape, you ask them, do you work out? You know the answer. Yes. How often? And they'll tell you 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week, whatever. In a seminar, I'll ask people, who here works out at least 5 days a week? And I'm stand up. And you look around that room, and you know that they work out 5 times a week because you can see their body. You don't just get a result without some kind of action, without some form of ritual. Ritual meaning actions you do consistently. Now, do you think those people that are out there working out 5 days a week, do they have more time than you do? Or I have, or anybody else? Of course not. Is their life less busy? Of course not. It's just a must for them. They must work out that way, and they've made that turn in their life changed. So I'm not saying you have to work out 5 days a week. I'm just saying whatever you really want, wants don't get met consistently. Standards do. Whatever you identify, this is who I am. And so it's not so much about changing your identity as there's expanding it. You know, deciding that, you know, instead of your goal is to lose 10 pounds, which is not compelling, what if your vision was to get back to my fighting weight? You know, this year, this month, this next 90 days, I'm going to transform my body. I'm going to take on a new challenge. I'm going to find some technique or strategy, there's a million of them, that can reframe myself where I want to feel younger, stronger, more vibrant than ever before. Here's my reasons. Because I want the energy to really make my life work. Because it's tough out there and I want to be stronger than I've ever been before. I want to go in front of the mirror and if I'm naked, not, you know, want to laugh. I want to look there and take a good look and go, yeah, I'm proud of whatever I see there. Whatever it takes, something's going to make you laugh, smile, something that's going to tease yourself, but something's going to move you to another level. If you identify yourself in a new way and you own that every day, and that becomes the standard of how you live, you'll find the way to make that standard real. Money's the same way. Think about it. It doesn't matter what's happening, quote unquote, in the marketplace. People that make money find a way to make money no matter what, don't they? I mean, most people's standard is to pay their bills. So that's what most people find a way to do, even when economic times get tough. Most people, if that's their absolute standard, they find a way. Some people's standard is pay their bills most of the time. And so most of the time they do. Some people's standard is not just to pay their bills, but to take care of their family and maybe even some of their friends. And they find a way. In fact, you know, some people may be in a family where they don't have enough money. They barely have money to pay their bills. They work their guts out. And then somebody, their mother, their father, somebody else, their sister gets ill, and there's not enough money to take care of it. Nobody else has money in the family. They don't either, but they find a way to get that money to take care of their mother or father, don't they? And pay their bills. They never could do it before. Why? The situation made them raise their own standard. And not everybody does that. Somebody else in the family might have money and still not take care of their mother. It all comes down to the inner game, my friends. Changing your life is a change in the inner game. The outside world you can't control, but you have absolute control over this one if you learn the dynamics of what shapes you. And identity is one of those simple, clear, fundamental basics that if you start to shift it, everything else will shift in your life as well. Some people, by the way, have to have more than enough money to do what they want, when they want, where they want, with whomever they want, contribute the way they want. And if that's their must, they find a way. I know that sounds overly simplistic, but it's true. You know, somebody once said you could take all the money in the world out of the hands of everybody, out of all the wealthy people in the world who are really successful, give it to other people. It wouldn't take too long, those people would have it back in their hands. It's not because they're manipulative, it's because they have a standard. Some are manipulative, don't get me wrong, but they've got a standard of what they're going to find a way to make happen. I'm just simply saying to you, take those 3 magic words and live them. Raise your standard.
For the next 90 days, your first 90 minutes at work, make it focused on your single most important project. I'll repeat that again. For the next 90 days, the first 90 minutes of your workday, focus monomaniacally on your single most valuable project. I call it your game-changing move. So it might be creating a new piece of code that will revolutionize the marketplace. It might be a new product that when you launch it will fill a need within your industry that no peer is currently providing. I don't know what your game-changing move is, but this is your poetry. This is your magnum opus for the next 90 days. So what most people do is, you know, people who are playing at victimhood, people who are in the 95%, people who are making excuses about ordinary results in their life, a lot of them are not doing the things that would give them legendary results. And what they do is they get to the office, and rather than using prime time for A activities. They use their best hours watching dancing cats on whatever it is, whatever the video platform is. They spend their best hours surfing the internet, looking at blogs. They spend their best hours playing with notifications, reading notifications, chatting with friends who are not really their friends, but really they're just bored, so they're distracting themselves, which is just a form of medication, because potential unexpressed turns to pain, and they're in a lot of pain, and it's subconscious, and they haven't done the work to know it. So really, they've created these drugs of choice, like too much email, too much web surfing, too much chit-chatting, too much looking at funny-looking videos that make them laugh in the moment, that make them feel happy and give them a short burst of dopamine and maybe a little bit of serotonin, which is the pleasure neurotransmitter, and that's how they get through their day. And all I'm saying is there is so much distraction available to you out there that if you are not acutely careful, it will dominate your days. What I'm really trying to say is this: a ritual for you to run and dial in and hardwire to the point of automaticity, that's the word the researchers use when a habit becomes your new normal, over 66 days, is the 90-91 rule. And to give it to you again so you really remember it, for the next 90 days, your first 90 minutes, create a tight bubble of total focus so that no one can distract you. Turn off your devices, put them in a little plastic bag, put some reminders on your door, maybe some Post-it notes that this is my tight bubble of total focus for the next 90 minutes. Tell your team, tell your loved ones, maybe put a do not disturb sign on your door. They'll laugh, and explain it to them that for the next 90 days, I will spend 90 minutes away from distraction, away from technology, away from interruptions, focusing on my magnum opus, focusing on the genius project that I want to bring into the world, because I will never mail it in, I will always bring it on, and I'm going to do this for the next 90 minutes, and I'm going to optimize it and iterate it every day, and I'm going to bring my full bandwidth, because what makes a genius, they all have one trait in common: they were able to spend extended periods of time in isolation, focused monomaniacally on their most valuable project.
I know you stated in the last lecture that the importance for setting aims in life, and to kind of have goals to work towards, right? So my question was, how do you do that if you don't know where you want to go? Because that's kind of where I got stuck on your future authoring program, because
Okay, that's a good question. That's a really good question. So there's this notion in the Old Testament that morality is following a sequence of prohibitions. There's a bunch of bad things you shouldn't do, and then basically you're good enough. And I think there's wisdom in that. I think that's kind of where children start, right? I mean, I love children and all that, but they're crazy little creatures, and they need to be, civilized. And partly what you do is you lay prohibitions on them, and mostly what you're trying to do is lay prohibitions on them for the behaviors that, if they manifested, would make their life miserable. So this is why this thing that I've said to people has become this crazy internet meme, but that's to clean up your room, and which is a lot better and more useful than people think. It's a lot harder too, but the first thing you do, I think, and I learned this in part from Solzhenitsyn when he was trying to iron out his soul when he was in the Gulag, because he was trying to figure out how he got there, how he contributed to how he got there. Not Stalin and Hitler, even though they were kind of to blame, but there wasn't much he could do about that. I think what you have to do, and this is part of humility, is you have to look around you within your sphere of influence, like the direct sphere of influence, and fix the things that announce themselves as in need of repair. And those are often small things, and they can be like your room. Put it in order, because the thing is, it isn't exactly so important that your room is in order, although it is. What's important is that you learn how to distinguish between chaos and order, and to be able to act in a manner that produces order. And I think you can do something as simple as just sit on your bed and think, okay, there's probably like 5 things I could do today so that tomorrow morning is slightly better than this morning was, or at least I'm not falling behind. And those will usually be, it's like having to eat a toad in the morning, right? It's like, it's not going to be something you want to do. There'll be things you're trying to avoid. They're snakes, essentially. But if you ask yourself, like you're asking someone, which I think is a form of prayer, if you ask yourself, instead of telling yourself, What is it that I could do to set things more right today that I would actually do? It's usually some small thing because you're not that disciplined, you know. Then you can go do it. And then you put the world together a little more when you do that. And that spreads out. But you also construct yourself into something that's better able to call order forth from chaos. And that makes you just incrementally stronger. And then the next day, you can maybe take on a slightly larger task. And like, you get the benefit of compound interest if you do that. It's a tremendously powerful technique. And I think if you do that, at some point, instead of just having to fix things up that are not good, you'll start to get a glimmer of the positive things that you could do, you know, the positive things that you could do that would actually constitute a vision. And that's what I would recommend.
Getting things is not going to make you happy. That's good news in a tough economy. It's a good reminder. You know, it doesn't matter what you get. Doesn't matter whether it be money or opportunity. All those things might excite you for the moment. You know, even a relationship, as magnificent it may be, might be exciting for a while. But if you don't keep growing, that relationship isn't going to stay exciting. So the secret to real happiness is progress. Progress equals happiness. And if we can make progress on a regular basis, we feel alive. And that's why at the beginning of the year, we get this thing like, okay, I can have this fresh start. I could really do what my soul desires. I could expand. I could grow. I could improve. I could change. Or maybe better than change, I could progress. See, think about that. Progress is an aliveness to it, doesn't it? You don't have to work at changing. People say all the time now, well, I'm working on changing. Don't worry about it. You don't have to work on changing. Change is automatic. Your body's going to change whether you want it or not as the years go by. And no matter how hard you work, there's going to be some changes going on there. And the economy is going to change no matter what you want it to do. The weather is going to change. Relationships are going to change. Everything in life is always changing. We don't have to work on change. Change is automatic, but progress is not. So if you want to make real progress, then you really got to look at your life in a different way. You got to say, I got to take control of this process and not just hope it's going to work out like people do who make a resolution.
You've heard me talk about the 2X, 3X mindset. So to double your income and your impact, triple your investment, including your time investment, in two core areas: your personal mastery and your professional capabilities. You see, when you work on your personal mastery, you awaken your mindset, your heart set, your health set, and your soul set. And when you get those four interior empires to world class, you become a force of nature out in the world and you do epic things. So you want to work on your personal mastery like you're doing here with me right now by listening to this episode. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to work on your professional capability. You want to be the heavyweight champion of your game. You want to dial in your sport, whether your sport is entrepreneurship, whether your sport is being a chef, whether your sport is being a coder, whether your sport is being a manager, whether you're an entrepreneur, a CEO, an astronaut, a poet, I don't know what it is. But when you focus on your personal mastery and your professional capability, and you really work on those, I'm talking about hours every day if you are serious about leading the field, what starts to happen is this. You become a vastly more valuable person. You become very aware. And that's why I say education is inoculation against disruption. That's why I suggest to you with great love and respect, leadership belongs to the learners. Maya Angelou said it beautifully. She said, when you know better, you can do better. With better awareness, you can make better choices. And with better choices, you're going to see better results. I mean, it's the awareness that you bring to every day based on your learning, based on your investments in training. Well, what does that do? It gives you the ability each day to make better choices, better decisions. When you look at a great life, it's just a series of beautiful choices done daily, stacked on over time. And so when you get great awareness, heightened awareness, more acute awareness of what it means to be a leader, an elite performer, an A player, an awesome human being, an epic producer, a fit human being, a loving human, it just goes on. With that awareness, via your learning, you can make better decisions every day, better choices.
Every 5 years, we have a review for our strategy. Now, our strategy is always to look at the 30 years and 10 years. And every strategic decisions we make we have to ask one question. Did this decision we made solve society problem? Because we believe the bigger social problem you solve, the more successful you are. So if we do this cannot solve any social problems, we don't do it. Second, is this project is going to be successful in 10 years? If it's going to be successful in 10 years, let's do it. If it's going to be successful in 1 year or 1 month, now more I would say, forget about it. Because why you can be successful in 1 year or 1 month? So we all have to put parallel. And 5 years ago, we had a big debate about 10 years later, 20 years, what are the things that China society and the world want? So we say happiness and health. 2H strategy. So happiness and health. We believe Hollywood, the movie industry, bring people happy. Because today, nobody's happy. Rich people not happy, poor people not happy, At least when I watch a movie, I feel happy about it, right? So I think we should partner with the Hollywood, especially like a lot of, we have a different way of living. In China, the movie, we have a lot of heroes, but China movies, heroes always dead. The American movie hero never die. If all the heroes die, who want to be the hero? So my movie, I want to make the hero live. Right, so this is, I think we should learn a lot. And it's only about 2 years, so we have another 8 years to go. I want to make our company that it's not e-commerce. It's something that giving people inspirations. Giving people, because I learn a lot. For example, I always say that my favorite movie, Forrest Gump. Life's tough. This is I learned, and that inspired me. That is why when people call me crazy, stupid in the past 70 years, you're crazy, you're doing something never work. You're stupid, how can you do that model? Amazon this model, eBay this model, why Alibaba this model? I told myself, Forrest Gump said, go ahead. Never care about what the other people. And the other thing, Forrest Gump said, nobody make money out of the catching whales. People make money by catching shrimps. So we serve small business.
Fair enough.
So many times you have a modicum of talent in an area, maybe just enough talent to appreciate people who are really called to that area. It doesn't mean that you need to necessarily go out and do that thing. You must understand that the purpose is an underlying chemistry that makes you live your life. It may not be, you may not have a strong talent. Let me give an example because I'm messing mine up. Let me give you an example. I have talent as a musician. I can play the piano. Not well enough to be maestro, but I have a modicum of talent in that area, but that was not my purpose. But many, many times we start working in an area that we have talent, but it's not our purpose. I tell my kids this, you may start out doing something that is not the thing you were created to do. It may only be the thing that leads to the thing you were created to do. You understand what I'm saying?
I got you.
So you don't stop at where you are as if it were the destination, when in fact, in reality, it may be the transportation that brings you into that thing you were created to do.
I think it's very important sometimes to look at older work, and it can give you ideas for, the present work, or even ideas for the future. It's kind of important to sometimes go back, and I felt that same way about seeing the films with my son. I was glad I went back, and it kind of inspired some things for the future, and it was basically a good experience.
You have to own your own happiness. Take it away from other people demanding that they make you happy. Your kids are not going to make you happy. Your spouse is not going to make you happy. A big house is not going to make you happy. Own your own happiness and be responsible for doing those things that bring joy into your own heart, independently of life and people and money and all of that stuff.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily give you a happiness. You have to take responsibility of that peace and that joy that lives inside of your heart and not inside of your stuff.
I personally love restrictions because it forces you to create, in this kind of like boundaries. And maybe you think of neat ideas because of these restrictions. Always in a film, you wish that you could be doing something else. It's just like having it becomes, you want to escape. And I think it's like this pressure and responsibility, just yearning to be doing anything, you know, and going anywhere. So many times going to the studio in the morning, I wish the driver would, you know, become crazy and take me anywhere. But when you get there, you're back in it and working. In spite of the restrictions, it's such a fantastic process, and it's creating, and creating is the coolest thing that we can do.
Enjoy the journey, not the destination. A lot of us delay our happiness. When I get to this level, when I get my degree, when I get the kids, when I get married, I'm going to be happy. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the whole step, the whole process. Every day that you get up to strive for whatever it is you're after. You know, I'm a goal-oriented guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you don't celebrate when you get to the finish line. Celebrate all along the way. Celebrate all along the way.
Yeah.
For me, what has happened is the heavy, you know, weight of anxieties and fears, those things have gotten less and less and less. And for me, life has gotten to be more like a game. And the things that used to, you know, almost kill me, don't kill me so much. And the enjoyment of doing gets so beautiful, and the ideas are flowing more and more, and the thrill of it all, I appreciate people more. I see people and I see their faces, and I feel like they seem familiar, and I just don't have so many problems, and life gets more and more beautiful, and I still love the same things, you know, painting and making films. It just gets better and better. That's my experience. When you finish a film, your job basically is over. And when you have a desire to share your work, and so you put it out into the world. And you realize that, yes, you can help the film some by giving interviews, or you can go to some places and have talks, but basically the film is on its own, and you can't tell whether it's going to go good or going to go bad. It's important that you believe in your work, and that's the most important thing.
Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. This is a chapter about conversation and about the different forms conversation takes. And it's a chapter about humility, and it's a chapter about listening. And the humility element is, it took me a long time to understand why there's religious injunctions supporting humility, but to even understand what the word really meant in that sort of technical sense. And it means something like this. It means what you don't know is more important than what you know. And that's a lovely thing to, then what you don't know can start to be your friend, you see. People are very defensive about what they know, and for the reasons we've already discussed. But the thing is, you don't know enough. And you can tell you don't know enough because your life is not what it could be, and neither is the life of the people around you. You just don't know enough. And so what that means is that every time you encounter some evidence that you're ignorant, someone points it out, you should be happy about that, because you think, oh, you just told me how I'm wrong. It's like, great. Like maybe I had to sift through a lot of nonsense to get through the real message that you're telling me. But if you could actually tell me some way that I'm wrong, and then maybe give me a hint about how to not be wrong like that, well, then I wouldn't have to be wrong like that anymore. That would be a good thing. And you can embark on that adventure by listening to people. And if you listen to people, they will tell you, they'll tell you amazing things if you listen to them, and many of those things are little tools that you can put in your toolkit, like Batman, and then you can go out into the world and use those tools, and you don't have to fall blindly into a pit quite as often. And so the humility element is, well, do you want to be right, or do you want to be learning? And it's deeper than that. It's, do you want to be the tyrannical king who's already got everything figured out? Or do you want to be the continually transforming hero, or fool for that matter, who's getting better all the time? And that's actually a choice, you know. It's a deep choice, and it's better to be the self-transforming fool who's humble enough to make friends with what he or she doesn't know, and to listen when people talk. And listening is a transformative exercise. Like if you listen to the people in your life, for example, if you actually listen to them, they'll tell you what's wrong with them and how to fix it and what they want. They can't even help it if you start listening, because people are so shocked if you actually listen to them that they tell you all those sorts of things that they might not have even intended to, things they don't even know. And then you can work with that.
Transcendental meditation is obviously the most important thing to do day in and day out. Transcending is the key to a better and better life. And this idea is catching on more and more in the world. The receptivity to transcendental meditation is growing by leaps and bounds, thanks to so many in this room and so many others around the world. It's really happening. It's built for the human being, and transcending our nervous system is built to transcend and experience that unbounded, eternal, infinite, immortal, immutable ocean of pure consciousness within. It's money in the bank. Meditate regularly.
My challenge in our generation is that gradually, through entertainment, through television, through media, through every way possible, we are living in a generation of the dumbing down of ideas. Because we have traded effectiveness for busyness. Statistics say, yeah, somebody ought to clap on that. We are busier than any other generation we have seen in the last 300 to 400 years. We are so busy. We are busier than a one-arm wallpaper hanger. We're just busy. You'll get it later. Don't worry about it. It'll hit you in a minute. We are just as busy as we can be, and we think because we're busy, we're effective. But I want you to challenge your schedule for a minute and ask yourself, are you really being effective, or is your life cluttered with all kinds of stuff that demands you and drains you and taxes you and stops you from being your highest and best self? And are you substituting busyness and all the chaos that goes along with busyness from being effective? Let me tell you, a bunch of scientists got together and they began to do some research, and they begin to determine that 80% of the things we do are busy things that we do in an area that is not effective, that the average person only spends 20% of their time doing the thing that they are really gifted at, created at, passionate about, excited to do, and the rest of it is all the dismal, dumb stuff that we all have to do in order to survive. Just crazy stuff that we're doing. Wonder what would happen if we would go from doing 80% of things that are busy but not effective, and 20% of the things that are really effective, if we would switch those numbers around and only give 20% of our time to the things that we have to do and 80% of our time to the thing that we were created to do. Wonder what would happen to your life. Now think about it a minute. There's a lot of things you could take from me and I could make it. You could take my suit, I got another one. You could take my car, I could get another one. You could take my house, I could get another house. But when you take my time, you have taken something from me that is totally irreplaceable. We take all kind of classes for money management. We know how to manage our money. We know how to repair our houses. We're working on our hair and our bodies and all of this kind of stuff. We do everything except the most important thing is to value our time. It takes time to be creative. You were meant to be creative. You were created in the likeness and the image of a creator, and in that likeness and in that image, you have creativity. If you had time, you would be creative. But in the absence of time and with busyness and clutter and the phone ring, beep, beep, beep. You all got music playing on your phone, all kinds of stuff. And no matter what kind of song you put on it, after a while you hate to hear it, because every time you hear that sound, you know it's somebody else wanting something else from you that's taking you away from what you are gifted and creative to do.
When God created this planet, He created several species. Now, if you're an atheist, it's okay. Call it the Force. Let me just say God for now, so I don't have to say God, the forest, God, the forest. Let's just say God right now. God creates the planet Earth. And first of all, he creates, which a lot of people in different organizations want, a perfect social economic world where everything is free, you don't worry about a thing, you're taken care of. There's no extra imagination necessary because it's all gonna be given to you. So he creates the oyster. He says, oyster, I'm giving you a free house to live in. I'm calling it a shell. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the ocean to protect you from your enemies. You have food, clothing, all the food you want, protection, everything you want, the perfectly taken care of while you're in your measly little life as an oyster, but you're not gonna go anywhere. You stay there at the bottom of the ocean, but you're totally got your free food, free clothing, free everything you want. Then God created something called the eagle. Eagle, whole different species. Eagle, you want a house, you go out and build it. Take the top of a mountain, take the top of a tree. Go out and build your own house. You want some food to eat? No problem. Go out there and find an eagle. And the eagle flies through miles in the wintertime of rain, sleet, snow, and wind just to feed its young. Did you know the eagle fails 95% of the time? A total failure. It's so big and cumbersome that when it comes upon its prey, they're wild. They shoot off in a different direction. And it misses. 5% of the time it succeeds. And what does it succeed to do? It succeeded to be the strongest bird in the sky. The only one that we know of anywhere in the world that could fly into the thermals of a hurricane and ride them to have fun. Now the eagle, unlike the oyster, can go anywhere it wants. Anywhere it wants. Yeah, it gambles, it does this on its own, but it goes wherever it wants. Now that eagle, and not the oyster, is the emblem of America, and also on the flag of many, many countries. You wouldn't be in this room right now if you weren't eagles. Don't only imagine, start doing it. Thank you. Peace, love, and happiness to all of you. Thank you very much.
Let me tell you something, the stuff you've been through, don't pay it any attention. It is just a sign that the baby is coming. You're on the verge of birthing. You're on the verge of birthing. You're on the verge of birthing. You're about to give birth. I want you to touch everybody you can reach and tell them the baby is coming. 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 You don't want to leave me now. The baby is coming. You don't want to walk out on me now. The baby is coming. I haven't had my best idea yet. I haven't had my most creative moment yet. I haven't produced my dream yet. I don't care whether you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. There's something down inside of you that's still kicking inside of you that wants to get out, and it wants to live. It wants to live. The whole reason you're here today is because there's something in you that needs to be fed, that needs to be stirred, that needs to be electrified, that needs to be illuminated. There's something down inside of you crying, let me out! Let me out! Make some noise in this place! Yes, yes, yes! We are waiting on your water to break and for you to give birth to the greatest idea you have ever had. Make some noise in this place. Anybody who left you is going to miss it. They're going to miss it. They're going to miss the greatest part of you, the greatest part of your destiny, the greatest part of your creativity. It took everything you went through yesterday to get you ready for what you are about to do today. You are standing on the verge of a great awakening, or you wouldn't be here. If I'm talking to you, make some noise in this place. There are businesses in you, companies in you, concepts in you, books to be written, paintings paintings to be drawn, concepts to be birthed, ideas, creative concepts. There's something that you could do, that you could think in your life that would radically change your life. Somebody could take the hand you've been dealt and win with it. Same circumstances, same ideas. They would do it through what they thought about your life. But we don't need somebody, because we got you. We got you. You're the one. You are the one. I want you to join hands with somebody for just a minute. I'm telling you right now, if you are going to birth your dream, your calling, your passion, and the second half of your life, you can't draw back when life gets tough. You've got to stand up to it and push. Get that person by the hand, because there's something inside of them that is about to happen. Squeeze their hand. And when I count to 3, I want every man and every woman that's got a concept, that's got an idea, I want you to push with all of your might until dreams and concepts and ideas start to birth out of you in the middle of the night. You're going to need pens and pads by your bed tonight, because you're going to have to get up in the middle of the night and start writing down all the stuff that's going to start coming out of your spirit when this day is ready. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
It's all in the mindset. When you get up in the morning, you do what you normally do. I would eventually say a lot of you here probably turn on your cell phones, your computers, and what's the latest email, what's the latest text that comes in? You start your day off like that. That's your mindset. Try this. Get up in the morning, do whatever you have to do. Don't turn the computer on. Don't turn the TV on. Go right back to bed again. Either lay there or sit there and just bring the universe to you. Here's how you do it. You just be. It's virtually impossible when you first do it, because 1,000 thoughts come through your head. We're human beings. So what you do is you're sitting in bed, look at the wall, look at the off TV set, look at the ceiling, look at the door, look at something in the room that gets your attention, and just look at it and just be for a couple of minutes. Not 10 minutes, not 20 minutes, not 2 days, just be. When your mind wanders, find another spot in the room to look at so you're back in present time, even for a couple of minutes. Now go about your day. Don't think about what you're going to do. For that split few minutes, you're now becoming part of a universe, which is also part of global thinking.
You're just harmless. You're like a rabbit. A rabbit isn't virtuous. It's just can't do anything except get eaten. It's not virtuous. If you're a monster and you don't act monstrously, then you're virtuous. But you also have to be a monster. Well, you see this all the time. Harry Potter's like that too. It's like he's flawed, he's hurt, he's got evil in him. He can talk to snakes, man. He breaks rules all the time. All the time. He's not obedient at all. But you know, he has a good reason for breaking the rules. And if he couldn't break the rules, him and his little clique of rule-breaking, you know, troublemakers, if they didn't break the rules, they wouldn't attain the highest goal. So it's very peculiar, but it's a very, very common mythological notion. You know, the hero has to be a monster, but a controlled monster. Batman is like that, you know. I mean, it's everywhere. It's the story you always hear.
If I had email, I would be inundated. I choose not to have email or ever turn a computer on. Now, all my companies are state-of-the-art, technologically advanced. If I want something printed out, it's printed out for me. But I do this out of choice. I'd rather make a phone call to you or write you a letter and communicate the way you deserve to be communicated with. And no disrespect to people on email, and I'd be so inundated, my gosh, I'd be on that computer all day long. I prefer to have that personal touch, and it seems to work. With all the companies I have that I'm quite active in, but I have great presence running most of them. Thank God, I'm very blessed there, right, to take care of the details, but I'm still hands-on in many of the businesses here. And I can work better that way, and it goes down to this. Pay attention to the vital few, ignore the trivia many. If I had email, no disrespect, there'd be a lot of trivia on there I'd be answering. I try and pay attention to the vital few and ignore the trivia many.
What do you differentiate those two categories to be? Like, where would, let's say, your president be, and where would, like, the head of a sales division be? Are they on two sides of that equation?
No, what it is if it's one of my companies, you could call me directly. But people know, call me directly if you have to, but don't bother me with something someone else can handle. And they do it. It works really, really fine, works really well. But what's important would be obviously presidents of company, anyone that's involved with me, either philanthropically, the main people philanthropically, or the main people in my businesses, or places or countries I want to reach out to. If the head of a country will call me, I'll call them right back. You know, things that are very significant. Insignificant are, I'll give you an example. In my life, it has been significant. I'm hit up every month for hundreds of requests. Send me $100, send me $2 million. You have all the money, share it with me. And I don't even touch it. I can't. I'm swarmed. I do so much philanthropy now. Everyone expects that, whether it's a $2 million mortgage or, hey, I want to start a new business, send me $50,000 because you have money I don't, that people should do it. Well, that's not true. I spend millions on philanthropic work, but I do it through our foundation where it really makes sense, not where I have to go through it all myself.
So my question is, how do you begin to set up that system so that you have the, and I'll call it a luxury in some ways, of communicating as you see fit, when you see fit with those key decision makers?
Well, for starters, I'm the chairman of the board, okay, of the major companies. So I know detail what's going on from the chairman of the board's point of view. I also know that the people that I've hired can do what they're doing much better than I can. And I know what I need to know, and so do they. So they could pick up the phone and call me, JP, we just did this, or look what we're doing here. I also attend meetings on a regular basis to see where we're at and where we're going, and meet with marketing people, meet with promotional people, meet with our educational people, sports marketing people, to get a hands-on feel for what we're doing, where we're going, and in those really important meetings, I sit in to help make the decision.
Speak to my kids like, you really gonna do that? Is that great? Is that gonna make a difference? Are you sure that's what you want to spend your time doing? So that competitive thing just opened up a big door, because that's one of the things I want to instill in you guys. I look in and I shape my career sometimes. I use the muse of LeBron James. LeBron, and he motivates me every day. I see him, he's up at 6 in the morning, he's playing his music, he's loving what he's doing, he's conscious, he's working out at 6 in the morning. He don't have to really work out at 6 in the morning. He's working out at 6 in the morning harder than everybody else. That's one of the keys. That's why you'll say I'm number one a lot. This is a fact. I want it more than almost everybody in here. I want it more than almost everybody in here. That's what I'm talking about. You gotta stand up for yourself and be able to compete.
That's right.
And you gotta put the work that it's gonna take to do it. I don't know if you're gonna do the same work as I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read up on it. I'm gonna say, they're gonna be like, yo, let's go to live tonight. I'll be like, I'm not gonna live tonight. I got to get to the bag. Hey, yo, let's smoke some. I can't, nah, I'm not smoking nothing with y'all right now. I gotta get to the bag. There's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for everything. But you have to be ready. We got the same 24 hours. You got to use your time wisely, and you have to be ready to really, really do the things other people aren't trying to do.
I worked most of my life. In high school, there was stewards cleaners. After school would go there, I would put the drape on the hanger, the sleeve on the hanger, and the janitor of all the cleaners. Clean everything up. I worked for $1.25 an hour. The only reason it was $1.25 an hour is because the steward had to pay that. It was required by law, or he'd be giving me 50 cents an hour. He was a very tightwad guy. So I come in one day after school, and he says to me to go to work, he says, Johnny, come here, I want to talk to you. I said, okay. Talk to steward, he says, Johnny, I was upstairs yesterday and I napped after I finished working. I was tired and I dropped my watch on the floor. I put it on the table, went on the floor, and I went down, I picked it up, and I noticed under the cot I was laying on, there was no dust. I moved the cot. There was no dust. I looked behind the filing cabinets. There was no dust there whatsoever. Zero dust. You really are a great janitor. I said, it's my job to do what I do when I do it, not when someone else is looking. Tightest guy in the world gave me a 25-cent raise to $1.50. Where I went to high school, I was the highest paid kid and maybe adult in the neighborhood. We didn't have a lot of money in those days. What it was if people, if humans can imagine doing what you have to do when nobody is watching you, you're doing as if someone is right there watching you. And in your free time, you're not trying to elongate something. You're doing what you should do without people watching you do it.
Rule number 2 is treat yourself like you're someone that you care about. And that's a deeper chapter, I would say. Like, chapter 1 is kind of comical, but it's also got this serious scientific end, for example, and it's practical, like most of the rules are. Chapter 2 is a bit of a meditation on why. See, I read this piece of work by Jung a long while back, and it was a meditation on the injunction to treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated, something like that. And what Jung pointed out, which I really liked, was that wasn't an injunction to be nice to other people. It was an invitation to reciprocity. It was something like this. It's like, you should figure out how you would like to be treated, like you were taking care of yourself, not how you would like people to respond to you. It's more important than that. It's like, imagine you had a child that you really cared for, and someone said, well, people will treat this child exactly like you want them to, but you have to figure out what that is. And so then you'd have to sit down for like a month and you'd think, okay, well, how do you want your child to be treated? You don't want everyone just to be nice to him, you know. You want people to challenge him, and you want people to discipline him, and you want people to tell him when he's wrong. It's like, you don't just want everyone to be nice. That's pathetic. It's pathetic. There's no challenge in that. And so, well, you want to treat other people like you would like to be treated. Well, then you have to figure out, how would you like to be treated? And well, you'd like people to fawn all over you and just lay everything at your feet. It's like, no, that's not something you'd wish for someone that you were taking care of. And then there's an additional problem, which is, it's often the case that people will treat other people better than they treat themselves. That happens extremely frequently. So one of the things I pointed out in chapter 2 was that if you have a dog and you take him to a vet and the vet gives you the prescription medicine, you'll go buy the medicine and you will give it to the dog, and you will do it properly. But if you go yourself to a doctor and you get a prescription, there's a 30% chance you won't even pick up the medication. You need to take care of yourself because you're in the best position to do that. And it's necessary for you to take care of yourself. Despite the fact that we're mortal and vulnerable and self-conscious and capable, not only capable of doing terrible things, but actually do them. Despite all that, you still have that responsibility.